Hello, good afternoon, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the ever faster and more importantly intense racing series that is the League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series Season 12, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and powered by Inca Salsa. We arrive at round 2 of 6 in the 12th rendition of the championship. Last time out for our season opener, we were in Belgium at the one and only Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, but we are here today and heading back in time in a way to one of the classics of road racing, and that is the Italian Temple of Speed known as Monza. Why is it a classic? Why is it a trip back in time, if you may ask? Well, this circuit still exists today, but it is arguably one of the oldest permanent road racing courses in the world. Having opened in 1922, the circuit has evolved over time through its oval banking through to the Grand Prix circuit you see here today, but the one thing that has remained the same all the way through is that it's an 11 corner combination where it is all about being at full throttle and flat out as much as possible over the entirety of the lap. Indeed, as our drivers get ready to go racing here today, they'll need to keep their heads down, keep their cool, and be able to return to full throttle as soon as possible, and also being able to brake as late as possible won't go amiss, as the 11 corners of this Italian circuit are going to put our drivers for their paces. With the corners being grouped up into medium speed sweepers along with chicanes, it is a circuit that doesn't take any prisoners if you're late on the throttle. Indeed, every mile per hour will be absolutely critical to success. But as we welcome you all to this post-round broadcast, albeit live for your viewing pleasure, well, firstly, let's introduce for the uninitiated what the concept of a post-round broadcast is. The racing action you're going to see today is not live. It occurred early this week on what was Thursday, the 14th of November 2024, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today, this fine Saturday, the 16th of November 2024. That means here in the commentary booth, we do not know what happens in the practice session, nor the upcoming qualifying session, or the races that are on our schedule, and therefore it's completely raw and as close as possible to a live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. And of course, we do ask if you do know the outcome and the results, please avoid any potential spoilers in our respective chats, and that way you don't give away all the surprises for us here in the commentary booth, but most importantly, the viewers. But as we welcome you all to this broadcast, we could be welcoming you right now via one of two media platforms your viewing pleasure. You could be tuning in via YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX141 at TX or Paul Walsh on YouTube, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, including their Tobin Engem. We also do have, of course, the broadcast available on Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But who is TX141, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to introduce myself as your host and commentator for this season. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all of your racing action for the entirety of this season. Speaking of which, our racing action for today, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time UTC, and as we can see, in just under 12 minutes time, we'll be going into our qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration, and seeing who's going to be able to put it on pole before we roar our way into the first of our two races here today, and the first one being the 8-lap sprint race due to get underway at approximately 5:30. After that, we'll be taking a brief breather before returning for our second race of the day, and then we'll be going into the feature race at approximately 10 to 6, 26 laps in length for that all-important mandatory pit stop as well, and let's see who comes away the victor after two races and really compounds their championship campaign. But as we head into today, let's give you a reminder of the championship calendar. And as we can see, we started off on the 7th of November and the one and only Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And in Belgium, the story was all about the battle at the front of the field, and in particular the double podium and the win in the feature for none other than Ray Aguilar, who took the lead in the championship and more on the specific points in due course. However, there were also some other big names in Spa, including what was Elliot Court, also Adam Merchant and Cameron Dance, but perhaps the biggest surprise of them all, of course, was none other than the disappointment for Squid Gang Racing, who put it on at pole and locked out the front row, but were not able to make it on to what was at that top step of the podium in either of the races. And could we see a subversion of that today, or at least different names on the podium? Well, we'll have to wait and see as we head into round 2 of the Autodromo Nacional Monza. After today, we'll be wrapping up the first half of the season, the 21st of November at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Indeed, there it's going to be up to the contrast of heavy braking zones and long stretches of straight on the first half of the lap, and its sweeping corners in the second half. And then we'll head into our mid-season break week to respect Thanksgiving before returning for the second half of the championship season, rounds 4 4 through to 6, which will start off on the 5th of December at the Long Beach Street Circuit in the US state of California, before we make our way to the United Kingdom for the Silverstone Grand Prix Circuit on the 12th of December, and we bring it all to a close on the 19th of December, just in time for Christmas, with none other than the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache in Brazil, and where better to host what could be a championship showdown, given the fact the circuit is no stranger to championship drama right at the end of the season. But we're still in the early stage of the season, and let's come into our Drivers' Championship standings after what is one round of racing. And as we can see here, after our first round at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, Raymond Aguilar has taken the lead by 3 points over Elliott Court. Then, meanwhile, Adam Merchant sits in P3, not too far away, and Cameron Dance only a further point behind. It's 10 points that separate the top 4, with Antonio Bianchi lingering a bit further behind and only ahead of Michael Fairchild for P5 on what is result countback. And then we have Richard Lyon, Alex Penn, James Turnbull, and Christian Gritzko completing the top 10. And the same change there for Arturo Megura, in the fact that we do see that Arturo is not quite inside the top 10 based on result countback, but indeed he is equal in P10 with regards to points there. And well, as we look outside the top 10, Delmas Leo there, we're holding on right now, and not too far behind either, as he looks to try and break his way back into the top 10, with Felipe Sarkis in P13 alongside Shahi Zuhair, and then Ryan Thibault ahead of Gail Rolls, Zaria Zainav, Jeremy Barber, and Jaden Calloway, and then David Ayezi completing that top 20, and equal points for the top 20 alongside Ayezi, Gareth McAllister, Jace Mayer, Nick Peterson, Chase Small, and well, on -8 points due to post-round stewarding penalties, Eric Guillory, he's in P25. As of the team's championship, it is currently Avanti Autosport who lead the way on 50 points, 18 clear of Blue Passport Motorsport, and Squid Gang Racing, the team that we thought could have really dictated the pace in Belgium last time out. They sit in a rather paltry P3, and we're looking for plenty more today, but they do have a 13-point advantage over Rodent Racing, with Kraken Racing completing the top 5 in the team's championship standings, and Rodent Jr. only further point behind, for well clear of both Rabbit Racing and BMR. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the Drivers' Championship, and we've also talked about the Team's Championship. Let's come on to our circuit for today. And it is, of course, the Autodromo Nacional Monza, the Grand Prix layout of which we're playing host to our drivers. The circuit located within the vicinity of Monza City in the Lombardy region of Italy. And well, thank you to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator and all the track maps that are provided as part of it. And as we can see from the track map provided here, this circuit is a staple of the mind when it comes to road racing. Indeed, many of you will know the corners as household names, whether it be the chicanes, the Prima Variante or Seconda Variante, or the Lesmos at turns 6 and 7, or the final corner of Parabolica, which is abridged, of course, from Parabolica to Lesmos by none other than the Curva del Seraglio or the Seraglio Straight. Well, there's something for everyone here. And as our drivers roar their way round, it's going to be a full throttle blast down towards the first chicane. Hard on the brakes are going to turns 1 and 2, before making their way up towards what will be the second chicane at turns 4 and 5 via the Curva Pisano at turn 3. As they exit the second chicane, which is a bit more lenient with regards to the angle between the two apexes, they'll find themselves heading up towards the Lesmos, the two medium speed sweepers at turns 6 and 7, when it's all about trying to carry as much speed as possible to the apex and beyond, as they then make their way back on themselves via the Seraglio Straight and in towards the Ascari chicane at turns 8 through to 10. The medium to high speed chicane there, seeing our drivers catapulting their way out onto the final long stretch as they make their way down towards the Parabolica curve at turn number 11. Now it's all about the late apex being able to find the grip to complete the lap and do it all over again. And it will be high speed, high risk, high reward action here in Italy, no doubt about it. And well, just before we go racing, let's give you a reminder of the rules, of course. Setup wise, drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by League Zero, and their fuel tanks will be capped at a value that enables them to complete both races on a single tank of fuel. And therefore it does mean the only thing you're going to see happen in the pits when pit stops do occur will be tyre changes, but more on that in a brief moment. Now, race-wise in general, the races shall start via a standing start, as the tradition of any Super Formula series, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 13 or more instant points in a given race. As for the sprint race itself, the grid order shall be set based on results of the preceding qualifying session, which is due to get underway shortly, and the race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount or 20 minutes, whichever passes first, but we are expecting those 8 laps to go rather rapidly compared to the 20-minute timer. The same applies to the feature race, with the grid order being based on the results of the preceding sprint race, but you will see the top 5 positions inverted. In simple English, what that means is your winner of the sprint race, well, they will be starting at P5 on the grid for the feature race, and we do that for the top 5 all the way through to the 5th place finisher, who starts on pole for the feature race, and then if you finish 6th or lower in the sprint race, that's exactly where you start on the grid for the feature race. And the race shall conclude either after the allotted lap amount, which is going to be 26 laps, or 45 minutes, whichever expires first. But we are expecting those 26 laps to fly on by. Now, as for pit stops in the feature race, we're not expecting any pit stops in what is the sprint race. But in the feature, we are expecting a mandatory pit stop from all of our drivers. And, well, we will see that our drivers must change tyres over the course of that race. And the pit stop may be taken on or after lap number 5, as I'm to understand it, but not on the final lap of the race. So, therefore, they can't just take the pit stop straight away. They must do at least a limited number of laps on their opening stint before they do go for that all-important tyre change as mandated by the pit stop. But that's only going to add a bit of strategic curveball, and, well, strategy could be absolutely pivotal here in the simple fact that at Monza, it's not just about your outright pace, it's also about the toe you can find off another driver and that slipstream gaining you a few miles per hour per lap, and that mile per hour differential could account for the best part of 5 to 6 tenths over the entirety of a lap. And that's enough rules and enough regulation, everything in between. We're here for the racing, and let's head circuit side, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way into the qualifying session here. And, well, as we do see our drivers making the way on around, indeed, we come straight to the qualifying footage whereby they've just completed their out laps, and we are now into the first flying laps for our drivers as they make the way on through. And, well, Squid Gang Racing once again being the first team out there, and then being pursued quite hotly by Avanti Autosport, as we see Ray Aguilar, the championship leader, following on through, but all drivers still trying to get some tyre temperature into those tyres, and Aguilar is going to be the man to beat here today, no doubt about it, given the fact that he has proven to be an absolutely tenacious driver when it comes to being able to wreak out those results when he's perhaps got his back up against the wall. But he makes his way on through Lesmo 1 and in towards Lesmo 2. Today we do have a new driver on the grid, and that is in the form of this man, the privateer in the number 2, and it is none other than Robert Nobles, as he makes his way up towards what will be the second chicane, and also known as the Regia chicane, as I do believe, if my memory serves me correctly, although I'm sure if I've got it wrong, some of you may be correcting me with regards to the other names for the chicanes out of the circuit. But as he makes his way on through, and, well, yes, it is the Della Regia chicane, or Variante Della Regia in full, and meanwhile the first chicane known as the Retifiglio chicane, well, as Nobles makes his way onwards towards down towards Serraglio, and now up towards Ascari. We are very happy to welcome the American driver on the grid in the number 2, and look forward to seeing what he is going to be able to do over the course of the racing today. Other drivers to keep an eye out beyond the drivers that we mentioned earlier on in today's broadcast. Also keep your eyes out for this man, the Canadian driver of Ryan Thibault, and, well, the number 27 driver putting on some good performances at Spa, no doubt about it, getting stuck into the fighting. But he'll be hoping for plenty more today as our drivers' lap times continue to come on in, and, well, as they do, I'm certain we are going to start seeing some lap times come up on board shortly, as Ray Aguilar has taken the initial provisional pole, but we have got plenty of time in this qualifying session. And the timer at the top of your screen, inaccurate by about the best part of what is 2 minutes there. So if you add another 2 minutes onto the time that has elapsed, we have got about 11 minutes of qualifying left to go. But still, that's plenty of time to put laps in here, with the average lap time expected in qualifying in the region of what will be about 1 minute 29, and the pole laps are going to be in the region of the 1 minute 28, so the fastest our drivers, particularly if they can find the toe. And, well, we get to hear the absolutely wonderful roar of the engines of our Super Formula 23 machines, those FF23 cars powered by Toyota or Honda engines, of course, all built to a Dallara specification, and those 4-cylinder engines absolutely roaring high. And keep in mind, of course, that you won't be seeing any flashing lights from behind where drivers sit in their cockpits. You won't be seeing the overtake lights being indicated, and that's because the overtake or push to pass button is completely deactivated in qualifying, and qualifying it is all about the raw pace that our drivers can extract from the cars. But when we do go into the race itself, that's where our drivers will have the 200-second time allowance of what will be the overtake button as they make their way on across the line. More lap times coming in here, and Aguilar continuing to try and improve out there. Shahi Zuhair, in fact, moving a little bit further up, moves up to P8 there, and when he comes across the timing lane, does look as though at the moment our timing town may be a little bit glitched with regards to this qualifying session. Zuhair getting it wrong there under brake and just coming a bit too aggressive onto the anchors there, and, well, having to try and get the car, and he's beached the car onto the sausage curb there, and that is going to be a a tow to the pits, a frustrating one for the Canadian driver from Kraken Racing, because the problem is when you reset to the pits, well, it costs you time by default, but on top of that, given the fact they're not allowed to make changes to the fuel tanks in these cars, given the fixed setup, it means all that fuel you burnt out of the car on your first few laps, all that fuel goes back into the car on the fixed setup, and therefore Zuhair now has less time to burn the fuel out of the car. He has a fresh set of tyres, but he's got a heavier car compared to most of his rivals out there in this qualifying session, and that is going to cost him even more time. As he heads on down and tries to get an outlap done very quickly, we look to Xavier Zainav as the Frenchman makes his way on through the Virginia chicane in that absolutely wonderful liveried Rodent Junior machine, and the Frenchman coming down in P15. But it does look as though, ladies and gentlemen, our qualifying time down the left may be glitched, and therefore we might have to give you an update on where everyone's qualified after this qualifying session has completed. A bit unfortunate, we do apologise for that, but sometimes it is the way it goes when we are doing these post-round broadcasts and having to look back at an iRacing replay file. But as our drivers make the way on through, still more time to go here and some improvements being made as we do see Leo Delmar making his way up towards what will be turn number 1, and not quite sure why on the standings his name was in the opposite order, but Delmar is his surname, not his first name, and Leo heading in towards it's turns 1 and 2, but taking way too much speed into the first apex, and the car drifting its way up onto the race sausage curb there of turns 2 apex, and as a result that suspension absolutely being clattered about, and that's not a comfortable feeling for driver, I can tell you, in the fact that he'll be shaken about to the core, and well, he'll now have to try and get himself recomposed as soon as possible. But as he heads down in towards turns 4 and 5, well, right now he'll be feeling it quite a bit, going through his hands and also his backside, and he'll be looking to get his head down and get moving once again. As meanwhile we do look to some improvements from Thibaut as he comes across the line here, the privateer roaring his way on down there in the number 27, and we're heading in towards the braking zone for turns 1 and 2. We'll shortly get on onboard lap with 1 or 2 of our drivers as we also look to James Turnbull there in the very bright, you can't miss it and you can't mistake it, orange and blue liveried machine with a little bit of yellow at the front onto the car there, as I do believe that is Elliot Court who has taken a trip to the grass on the exit at turn number 2. Most likely quite a bit of excess power there coming out of the left-hander, and well, the car just stepping away from him. And that's the thing with these machines as well, they're very light, and with 550 horsepower available to them before you activate the push to pass, well, it does mean that these cars are hypersensitive to the throttle inputs. But the thing with these super formulas and with most open wheel racing machines is that they're downforce reliant, and therefore you need to drive them on the limit and as much possible speed in order to get the best possible aerodynamic grip. It sounds counterintuitive when you think about it. You've got to go fast to be stable. Normally the faster you go around a circuit, the less stable the car is because you're driving it on the limit, but that is exactly where all the aerodynamics, the front wing, the rear wing, and all the little bits in the empennage and whatnot, that's where they will all apply that much needed downforce in order to enable you as a driver to get the car around as rapidly as possible. So therefore it really is a discipline whereby you've got to have your head down and that full concentration from the outset. And well, as we look further up the order in terms of qualifying order to Felipe Sarkis, the Brazilian driver here for Kraken Racing, currently in P5, and I think he's feeling as though there's a bit more time out there in this qualifying session before all is said and done. But as he makes his way onwards towards the Ascari chicane, well, we are just over the halfway point of this qualifying session now, approximately what is the best part of 6 minutes left to go, if that. And Sarkis looking to try and get himself on the front row of this grid if possible, and that could be said for many a driver, including this man Jaden Callaway, in the tow of his teammate just in front of him as he heads on around through the right-hander turn at number 11. And well, it looks like Squid Gang Racing here trying to work this out, doing a swap back and forth between their drivers as they come across the line. That's Adam Merchant you see in front, and Jaden Callaway over 29.796 there to Merchant's 28.029. But I get the feeling perhaps they did the swap coming out of Ascari, so Callaway may have been the tow for the majority of the previous lap for Merchant, because the fact there's a 1.7 second delta there between the two of them would indicate that Merchant got the tow, not Callaway. And well, they're now going to try and swap things back as they head on through what will be turn number 3 and up towards the Regia chicane. And well, now Callaway is going to have the opportunity to be in the draft all the way through to the end of this lap, and great teamwork being shown here between the Squid Gang Racing drivers. as they go in towards what will be the Lesmos, and this will be the most painful section of the circuit for being in the tow, because medium speed sweepers, that's where you need the clear air. You don't want the dirty exit, upsets the front end of the car, but coming out of the right-handers, and now onwards towards Seraglio, and down they go through the Seraglio straight. Well, we're heading towards Ascari. You'll see here the fact that Callaway just staying firmly in the tow of Merchant. Merchant put off slightly off a racing line there, and I wonder whether they feel like they need to go again. Perhaps Callaway's had a bit of an error midway through this lap. We haven't quite seen a visible error, but it looks as though, in fact, they are slowing up a little bit, so they're not quite happy with how this lap has gone so far. And as they do slow things down, well, they're going to build up once again. But I think everybody right now trying to stay in the tow one, forming a long slipstream queue here. And well, Callaway's going to have another shot at this as he heads on around. And we jump on board with Jaden Callaway for a flying lap of the Monza Grand Prix circuit. So heading across the timing line here, already what will be the best part of in excess of 160 miles an hour. He powers his way down towards turn number 1, and as he does so in the draft here, heading upwards of what will be 190 miles an hour as he hits the brakes hard at 100 meters aboard and trowel brakes into the first apex, making sure not to clip the sausage curve at turn number 2. Now building back up the throttle once again, and as he follows in the draft there, full commitment now, full throttle all the way through the Pisano curve, and as he comes on around, also known as Curva Grande, roaring his way in towards he turns 4 and 5, bringing the car to the right hand side and braking the 100 meter ball, coming all the way down the gearbox to 3rd gear, keeping it in a higher gear compared to 2nd to stabilise the rear tyres as he powers his way through the 2nd chicane, now into Lesmos, and this is where it's all about relying on the downforce and not using too much braking effort as he goes through Lesmo 1 into Lesmo 2, drops from 5th to 4th, exiting out there 110 miles an hour, now building up the speed, and this is looking a very fast lap from Callaway as he heads upwards towards what will be Ascari, but you'll notice there now he's getting closer and closer to the back of Merchant. You can notice how he's pulled slightly out the toe there in the run down Circular. That's to prevent an overspeed and getting too close to Merchant for Ascari, but full commitment there through the chicane, and when doing so now he'll pick up the best possible toe here, heading in towards the final corner, and as he does so Merchant pulls aside. Callaway will be released now as he breaks the 100 meter board, dropping down to 4th gear, back on the throttle, and immediately as he clears the apex, and has Callaway done enough to take pole position here as he clears the corner, stays over to the right hand side. He'll cross the timeline. It's a 27.926 on, I believe, when the lap times are accounted for, despite our glitched timing board. That is provisional pole for Jaden Callaway, and what a lap it is. And well, can anybody respond to that? I get the feeling the answer is going to be no here, as Jaden Callaway absolutely roaring rampant there, and well, as he continues to make his way through, given the fact that that is the only 27 we have seen this qualifying session so far, based on the times that are available to us. And we do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, for that qualifying tower, the timing tower not being accurate, but we're keeping an eye on the times here that we can see. Unfortunately, we can't show you the other timing board that we have here offline, but what we can tell you is that Jaden Callaway right now is your provisional pole sitter, and with only the best part of about 2 minutes left to go in this qualifying session, well, it could all be in the hands of Jaden Callaway as Ray Aguilar is into the pit. Where he's come on in, and he's not going to be getting another lap in. Nick Peterson the same there, and the privateer tucked in behind the Avanti Autosport driver, and I think just getting a little bit of standing start practice there is Aguilar, but can anybody else find a way to move further up the order? Philippe Sarkis also doing a good job here as he currently sits in P5 by looks of things. Turnbull moves up to P13 off camera on a 29.524, but the lap times are continuing to come on in from all of our drivers here, and well, it could all be about last gasp opportunities in this qualifying session to be able to take pole position as they make the way on through Parabolica. And Sarkis right now are firmly planted in the toe there of Nobles, and as he heads towards the line, they stay over to the right to shorten the run. Nobles goes P19 on 29.788. Sarkis improves to a 28.486, and I think when all the times are allotted for, that is P3 for Sarkis. And well, with Callaway definitely on pole at this point in time, well, we've only got a couple more drives out there, but remember, when the clock strikes 15 minutes complete, that's in qualifying. You can't finish the lap you're on, so they've got to get things done. That's why you're seeing so many drivers coming into the pits. Zuhair here coming down towards the final corner, and the Kraken Racing driver in the number 10 makes one through, takes a little bit of grass with him there, trying to open up Parabolica curve as much as possible. Open it too much. Zainab moves up to P16 at the death of this session. Zuhair crosses the line, and as he does, so does he improve. It's a 29.341. Not quite sure whether that's going to put him further up the order, but it's a good lap from Zuhair, and well, I think he In fact, he has done a 28 or 2 so far, so therefore he has had better out there. And that is practically the qualifying session complete, ladies and gentlemen, because right now, in terms of drivers who are out there, Jace Mayer is coming in. Well, in fact, Jace Mayer's into the pits. Michael Fairchild there's already crossed the line. James Turnbull makes his way to the line here. He's on his final lap. And he improves even more. It's a 29.443. So a good lap there from James Turnbull. That'll put him towards the, well, it's just outside the top 10, but in the upper echelon of what will be the run from P11 to P20. And meanwhile, Cameron Dance improves right at the end, but that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we're going to head to the grid to tell you exactly how they all line up. As goodness me, what a qualifying session. It was fast, it was rapid fire, and those laps came in absolutely blazing hot. But this is how our drivers line up then for our first race of the day. And well, as you can see, with all the qualifying laps allotted, Jaden Callaway has taken pole position, back-to-back pole positions for Squid Gang Racing's Callaway. He takes pole on a 27.923. Adam Merchant lines up P2 alongside his teammate once again. If you're getting flashbacks to Spa-Francorchamps only a week ago, well, don't feel as though you need to be forgiven for it, because that's exactly how they lined up last time out. And well, they'll be looking to try and lead away today. Philippe Sarkis starts P3 for Kraken Racing with an absolutely brilliant qualifying lap there to put him on the second row just ahead of Elliot Court. The Blue Passport Motorsport driver starts P4 from the United Kingdom, and he's just ahead of Cameron Dance there by 2.5 tenths. The privateer starts P5 for his journey. P6 is Ray Aguilar for Avanti Autosport ahead of Nick Peterson, the privateer, and Shahi Zahir completes shuffle for the grid for Kraken Racing. We do then have Gail Rolls for Rodent Racing starting P9 ahead of Richard Lai, his teammate, who rounds off the top 10. On row 6, it's going to be Ryan Tebow, the privateer, ahead of fellow privateer James Turnbull, who starts P12. And then we will see on the 7th row of the grid, Michael Fairchild, the Colombian driver, ahead of Jace Mayer. And well, the Rabbit Racing driver starting P14 ahead of Leo Dumar for Rodent Jr. And then we will have on the 8th row of the grid alongside him, Xavier Zainab for Rodent Jr. And then on row number 9, it'll be Gareth McAllister for Rabbit Racing and Robert Nobles starting at P18. And round off your top 20, it'll be Christian Gritzko and Arturo Mayorga for BMR with one of his weaker qualifying performances of recent seasons. And then on what will be the final full row of the grid, starting P21 and P22, it'll be respectively David Iezzi, the privateer, ahead of BMR's Eric Guillory, not setting a qualifying lap in the session. And I do believe that being as a result of the post-round penalties applied from round number 1 of the championship. But the grid is almost set, ladies and gentlemen. We just have a little bit more time before our drivers do get underway, and most of our drivers all in position now. And I think just making the final checks with regards to whether everything is set up on the car correctly. But the grid is set, and without further ado, on the right, it is Callaway. On the left, it is Merchant. And who is going to lead away come the end of the first lap? It's lights out and away we go for the sprint race here at Monza in race 3 of the championship. And Jaden Callaway gets a good start, but Adam Merchant also gets a good launch off the line. They're side by side as they come down towards turn number 1. Hard on the anchors they'll go. The rest of the field, Constantina's in. One driver on the grass there. That's Ryan Tebow taking the rallycross line. And as he rejoins, he takes the escape road there. Oh, goodness me, it's gone wrong. One driver, another driver being turned around as well. And well, it's gone wrong for what is there? Leo Dumart and also Zainab. Oh my goodness. And Mayorga coming together there with none other than what was David Iezzi. And it is drama through the opening 2 quarters. And well, they do say that the 3 most feared words in what is racing is firstly wet weather, or phrase I should say is wet weather, also red flag, and then thirdly Monza turn 1. And Monza turn 1 strikes once again there, and multiple drivers involved in a number of altercations. And well, as a result, we've already had Xavier Zainab, Christian Gritzko and David Iezzi all have to tow to the pits, and I would presume that Arturo Mayorga is going to need to drive into the pit lane if he can get the car home, given the damage he's picked up. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, Adam Merchant, Jada Callaway and swap places, and it is Merchant who leads, heading down towards a Parabolica curve. And as they make the way onwards towards turn number 11, you can see the long line of cars here all tucked into the tow as they head in towards the final corner. A bit further back, Shahi Zuhair squaring off with Nick Peterson, and well, Zuhair on the left here, a picture for Kraken Racing, looking for that move as early as possible. And well, Peterson's not going to put up too much of a fight here, or it would be a bit of an interesting idea if he does, because they will gradually lose the tow of the drivers in front, but they are going to fight side by side as they roar the way down. You can see the overtake, or the push-to-pass buttons being deployed by number drivers. The flashing green light there means that they are using it. If it's just a static green light, it means they have it available, but they're not using it. And Shahi Zahair using the push-to-pass, cements the move there, coming down in towards Rettifilio, and will get it done, going on to lap number 2. But as they make the way on through, I can imagine that Peterson will try and come back a little bit later, as further down the order outside the top 10. We've also got plenty of battling here, and Leo Domar for Rodent Jr., where he's trying to make his way past Nobles, and Nobles had a brilliant start to this race, 7 places gained, and now Bester SP11 as he's trying to make his way a little bit further up the order. Oh my goodness, and what on earth has happened to Elliot Court? He's gone around there at what has been the Regia chicane, and I believe involved in a bit of an incident with none other than Cameron Dance, who's missing a front wing. So the two drivers have had a big coming together there, and well, as he tries to negotiate his way back to the pit lane, I can tell you that Court is already into the pits. He's had to be towed. Mayorga has left the pit lane. He was able to get the car back home, and well, meanwhile, in all the carnage and chaos, James Turnbull and Gail Rolls having a little bit of a balmy here as they make the way on for Ascari, albeit Turnbull in the end not giving him whatsoever and forcing Rolls to have to back off as they head down towards turn number 11. But there in the foreground of the picture, you can see Zuhair under pressure from Peterson. Peterson trying to come back at Zuhair. It's literally deja vu, but the Rolls reverse from lap number 1 as they come around the right-hander of Parabolica, and well, in the end, Peterson just running absolutely right on track limits, and meanwhile Zuhair tucking in behind. But as they come down towards turn number 1, what's going to be very interesting here is that the push-to-pass button is not going to be as effective as it may be at other circuits on the calendar. But hold the fort as they battle the way side by side down into turn number 1, and behind that is going to be Rolls and Turnbull going side by side. Rolls gets up the inside, and Peterson defending from outside to inside has been able to hold off Zuhair as they head in towards Curva Grande or Curva Bazzano, but coming on through turn at number 3, and see Zuhair is refusing to give in, throwing everything at this as they head in towards the second chicane. Onto the brakes they go, and as they come on through left into right, they give each other plenty of racing room. Great respect shown between the two of them, and Peterson and Zuhair right now refusing to budge an inch on one another, but being kind as they do so as they make the way around. Oh goodness me, and that looks as though that was netco contact between the two of them from the camera angle, and Zuhair's car in the end takes a huge shunt on the right hand side, and the front right suspension's completely gone, and that is going to be a tow to the pits there. But it looks like there's plenty of space between the two of them, so if it was netco, that's extremely unfortunate because they were enjoying an absolutely beautiful battle between them, and well, in the end it's ended in tears as Zuhair's had to be towed to the pits. A little bit of elbows out there between Rolls and West Turnbull, and they just about make it cleanly for Ascari, albeit I think while the hairs on my back started to stand up as they make the way down the final stretch in towards Parabolica. But all this fighting for P6 means that Turnbull and Rolls have now got Delmar, also Nobles and Light all tucked in behind, and right now Richard Light, as we ride on board here with the P10 driver in the 43, the Rodent Racing driver is just watching on and looking for an opportunity to get involved as they head across the timeline going to the second half of the race, and Light hipping over to the right hand side, and I think he's just trying to bleed off a little bit of the excess speed and give himself visibility of what's happening in front of him. Bit of an uncommon approach unless he's trying to break the toe to McAllister for behind him, but the interesting thing in doing so, given that McAllister is so far back, he was a second back, well, that's going to cost Light time by not being in the toe, and that's going to hurt him. The only other thing is that he's trying to manage tyre and brake temperatures at the front, which if he's having trouble with that only 3 laps into this race, then that is going to be a major concern when we go into the feature race. But as they head down towards the braking zone here for Regia, you can see Rolls looking up the inside of Nobles, can't quite find it, and they stay as they were, and Nobles right now on his debut for this season doing a fantastic job as we've got a driver off in the rear of the picture there, and that is none other than McAllister, who's had a spin at turn number 4, gets it turned the right way round, but the Rabbit Racing driver in the number 25, it's all going from good to bad to disastrous very rapidly as Eric Guillory, who started from the pit lane, it should be pointed out, having started last with that penalty from round number 1, the BMR driver right now up to P13, and sometimes showing, you know what, you just got to stay out of the danger and you'll be rewarded in the long term. But as we come back up towards the front of the field, and we do say hello there to JTS F1 in the YouTube chat, who says Adam Merchant is the greatest of all time, or the GOAT as it's abbreviated to in modern internet slang, or as they come down towards turn number 1. Merchant leading this race. They're going to the second half of the heat ahead of Jaden Calloway with Philippe Sarkis P3, and then we do have Ray Aguilar and Nick Peterson completing your top 5, albeit the gaps between where's the top 5 now starting to increase significantly, and then we have James Turnbull P6 just fending off Leo Delmar for now, the Frenchman closing on the American, but then it's Nobles versus Rolls once again for P8 as they go side by side on the braking in into the opening corner, and well, Nobles this time really gets his elbows out, but also gets a lot of power oversteered there in overturning the car, and in the end it's Gale Rolls who gets the move done, and Richard Lai comes through behind his Rodent Racing teammate, and well, Rolls and Lai are on the move as they head onwards towards turns 4 and 5, and Nobles now down to P10 with Ryan Tebow, best the rest P11, 4.6, in fact 4.2 seconds of this battle. But as our drivers make the way deeper and deeper into this race, there may not be long left, and we look back towards the leaders here as the Squid Gang team continue to try and lead this race through to a successful conclusion and make it a 1-2. Well, they missed out on in 2 occasions at Circuit des Spa-Francorchamps a week ago, but today they're hoping it's not going to elude them. But the one spanner they do have in the works is that they do have Philippe Sarkis staying with them, and well, there you can see him a little bit further back in the rear of the picture as you hear the fire back there on the exhaust of the car as he makes his way out of the corner, and these lovely 2-litre 4-cylinder machines absolutely roaring their way across the line as fastest lap of the race, and that bonus point going to Sarkis now on a 29.050 as Ray Aguilar meanwhile with no toe to support him sets a personal best of a 29.5. But the problem is in the fact that when you don't have the slipstream to assist you, you're missing half a second of race time here, and that is what is so important about Monza. You need the toe in order to be successful, and you've got to try and work with your rivals or with your teammate in order to break away. But coming back to the big question that we're talking about only moments ago, as we see Ray Aguilar in fact starting off at the opening chicane, and Nick Peterson's now moved up into P4. Why is the push to pass button not going to be as effective here at Monza? Well, keep in mind it is a fuel injection button. It just means that more fuel is injected into the engine. It does not change the top speed these Super Formula cars, therefore it assists them in getting up to their top speed faster. But when you're at a circuit where you're going to be running at your top speed most of the time, and you need the slipstream to push you beyond that, given the downforce you're running on the car, and the slipstream naturally takes away some of that downforce, therefore the push to pass is only good at getting you ahead of your rival. When you're on these long straights, do you really want to be the lead car in the battle? You may be on the final lap, but you don't want to be the lead car for too long, for the simple reason that you'll just end up providing the toe to your rival behind, and that is why this is going to be a very different race in terms of strategy, as we do see Arturo Mayorga there making his way around the outside of Fairchild, all in on the brakes, outside to inside. Great scrap between these two. Keep in mind, of course, that they are both almost a lap down given the difficulties they've had over the course of the race distance, but they have got it back together, it would seem, and they're P15, P16, the last of our runners currently, as the first of our retirees in terms of the order would be Cameron Dance, who's 2 laps down, and I think will not be returning to the race in asphalt before this race reaches its checkered flag. But as we see Fairchild going a bit deep there and brings it back together, well, the privateer right now doing everything he can to chase after Mayorga as much as possible, but heading in towards Lesmo 2, that gap is only going one way and it is increasing. As we then come back to the battle for P12, and Eric Guillory here still trying to keep Gareth McAllister behind. Side by side they go across the timeline onto what will be their penultimate lap. Guillory immediately lifting off and going back into the toe. Well, not really lifting off, but that is the slipstream effect there that you're seeing from McAllister's car and how he gets ahead, and Guillory will try and cut back as soon as possible, albeit going a little bit deep there. Turn 2, gets too much power down, and that kicks the rear of the car around. He'll get it back together. He avoids the wall. That's going to be frustrating for the BMR driver, who's doing so well to stay out of trouble. Meanwhile, we look back to your top 3, and well, as they romp and roar their way through Ascari, they've got one more lap to go after this, and Merchant still leading them as all 3 drivers are using the overtake button as much as possible to build up to that top speed. They want to go as quickly as possible towards Parabolica, and well, I can imagine they've all saved as much as possible for this final lap. But the problem is here, if they've all got it available, then nobody effectively gains an advantage as they head to the timeline. And here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, a white flag will wave, and this will be the final lap of this sprint race here at Monza. Fastest lap has just gone to Sarkis at 28.281. He's absolutely roaring behind in the double toe, but side by side between the Squid Gang Racing teammates, it's going to be Merchant and Callaway. 2 wide, they enter the chicane. 2 wide, they're going to exit here. Keep it clean, guys. The last thing you want to do is take out your teammate in this race and cost your team huge points, as Callaway does get ahead around the outside. To the inside then of Pisano they go, and as they come through turn number 3, Callaway gets a nose ahead for now, and Merchant immediately looks to have to defend versus Sarkis as they head in towards the Regia chicane. 2 wide under brake in there, but Merchant knows he's going to be squeezed to the apex. He forces the move, so he decides not to. He backs out of it, but now he's got the objective of keeping in the toe for the Lesmos and trying to make the counter-attack in towards Ascari if he can. But as they go onwards towards what will be turn 6 and 7, Callaway open up that gap to 4 attempts, but that gap will very quickly come the other way as all three drivers there absolutely pushing it to the limit, roaring their way down Seraglio. Up towards Ascari they go, and as they come in towards that braking zone, who is going to be the one to get the best run out of these 3 fast fire corners? Well, it's going to be the number 1 driver, Callaway, right now. Of course, your champion from last season, who's trying to find a bit of championship momentum here as they head down towards what will be turn at number 11. And Callaway looks to be in control here, but it's going to be a sprint to the finish line as well. And Callaway can't afford any mistakes as he comes in towards Parabolica Curve. Out he comes, and as he does so, he's going to do enough as the checker flag waves, and Jaden Callaway will take victory in the sprint race at Monza, ahead of Adam Merchant P2, and Philippe Sarkis completes the podium there, P3. Only 6 tenths between the trio. Ray Aguilar is under pressure, though, however, from what is Nick Peterson, but Aguilar is going to hold on for P4 ahead of Peterson P5. James Turnbull will take P6 ahead of Leo Del Mar, and then it will be Gail Rolls who finishes P8 there ahead of Richard Lai, and completing the top 10, Robert Nobles there on his debut for this season. A brilliant drive there for Nobles. He's happy with that as he weaves from side to side. Ryan Thibault, P11 there, best of the rest, and then it will be, in due course, 14 seconds behind, it will be there Gareth McAllister for Rabbit Racing, P12, in what's been a frustrating race for him and so many after that spin at was turns 4 and 5 for McAllister in his instance in the 25, and Eric Guillory will come on home P13 after that spin at the first chicane with only 2 laps to go. And then we've got a further 16 seconds to Jason Mayer, involved in one of the early altercations between himself and a number of drivers on the opening couple of laps, and were able to get the repair work done when he needed it most in the pit lane, and still able to bring the car home and get some good points on the board. P14 there, and his own personal best lap on the end ahead of Arturo Mayorga, who will come on home for P15 by a second over Michael Fairchild, who will be your last finisher, albeit Fairchild making his way into the pit lane. In fact, I think he's had a bit of an incident out of the final quarter. We didn't quite see what happened, but he'll be your last finisher on the lead lap, P16, and your last finisher of this race, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me, what a race it has been to set the tempo here at Monza. And the great thing is we've got another one to come very shortly, albeit with an intervening warm-up session firstly, and that gives our drivers a bit of a breather, and it gives us time to take a look at those race results subject to any steward inquiries, and here they are. So after our 3rd race of the season and race 1 of the day here at Monza, in round 2 of season 12 of the League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series brought to you on iRacing, we can see in the sprint, Jaden Callaway taking victory for Squid Gang Racing ahead of his teammate Adam Merchant by 4 tenths at the finish line. Philippe Sarkis a further 3 tenths behind there, completing up the podium in a brilliant back and forth race between the trio. And well, a good point there being made by Zen in the YouTube chat, which is that Jaden Callaway only leading 1 lap and leading the one that mattered, and that being the final lap to that checker flag after Adam Merchant led the race from lap 1 all the way through to lap 7. Ray Aguilar, meanwhile, P4 there, the championship leader coming into this round, losing a little bit of ground and some points advantage for Avanti Autosport, but still within arm's reach. Know that he put him on P2 of the grid for our 2nd race of the day, and Nick Peterson taking P5 there, and well, he won't be complaining in number 24 because that will put him on pole position for the feature. James Turnbull will start P6 after finishing P6 in our sprint race, and a good drive there from the 83 driver. When it all looked to be going in the wrong direction in the early stages of the race, we was able to turn that frown upside down into a smile, and taking P6 by 1.3 seconds over Leo Del Mar, the Rodent Junior driver, outpacing his Rodent Racing senior teammates of Gail Rolls and Richard Lai, who took P8 and P9. Robert Nobles finished P10 there, a brilliant performance from the privateer driver in the number 2, ahead of Ryan Thibault, who was best of the rest, P11, and Rabbit Racing's Gareth McAllister, P12 there, in a challenging race, and 1 spin cost it all. Eric Guillory, the same for BMR in a way, in the fact that spin late on puts him out the hunt for a top 10 finish. In the end, P13 was the best he could achieve, ahead of Jace Mayer for Rabbit Racing, and then Arturo Mayorga and Michael Fairchild, P14 at P15, well, in fact, P15 at P16, I should say, as my eyes do deceive me, and well, they completed the running order of the race. 4 laps down, the unfortunate retirement for Cameron Dance, P17, ahead of Shahi Zaher, who was also a non-finisher for Kraken Racing. 5 laps down, and we saw the same there, 6 laps down for Elliott Court for Blue Passport Motorsport, and we saw retirements after what was only 1 lap for David Ayezi, Christian Gritzko and Xavier Zainav. So a frustrating race for a good number of drivers, but the great news of course is we've got plenty more racing to come in our second race of the day, and well, we are not too far away from that one. But in the intervening period, we do have the best part of 2.5 minutes. It gives us a great moment to have a breather, and if you do need a quick bathroom break, ladies and gentlemen, or you need an opportunity to go get yourself a liquid refreshment, whether it be cool or hot, of course the winter season here in the United Kingdom and also in the United States of America, but you may be on the southern hemisphere. If you're in Australia and New Zealand, you'll be heading into your summer. Well, either way, now's the perfect time to quickly grab yourself a drink or even a snack and get yourself set, because if 8 laps are racing at Monza tickled off fancy, what will be 26 laps will be absolutely incredible, no doubt about that, and will plenty more racing to come in very short order. As we say hello as well there to what is Adam Merchant and David Adeyiyi, and we're great to see so many of you tuning in at the YouTube chat, and always great to have you all enjoying all the racing action week in, week out, because that's what makes the Inca Salsa Formula Series, as brought to you by League Zero, what it is. It's about the drivers, the fans, and it all coming together as our drivers here just getting in some practice time. If you're Christian Gritzko or Turti Shahi Zaher, alternatively, they may be looking to try and keep the adrenaline levels as high as possible. Indeed, some drivers enjoy using the warm-up break period of 5 minutes to just take a breather, step away from the car, whereas others just want to be out there because they want to keep the momentum, they want to keep the rhythm and the muscle memory going. Every driver has a different approach, and well, some will stay out on circuit in order to calm those pre-race nerves, whereby if they can just focus their time on doing that lap after lap, well, it prevents them from starting to hypothesize about how the race can go and really overthinking things. And that's another thing as well in these Super Formula SF23 cars. When you start to overthink, you start to become distracted, worrying about potential mistakes, alternatively how the race is going. That's where it becomes so easy to make an error. There's no doubt about it. But credits where it's due. These guys are absolutely taming what is one of the most wildest beasts of open world racing in the world, and doing a very good job of it. We're not too far away now from going into our second race, and when we do, well, it's definitely going to be a race not to be missed, as we've got that all-important pit stop. And what's going to be interesting with regards to the pit stop at this 3.6 mile circuit is the fact that you don't necessarily want to come out in clear air. You ideally want to come out in the toe of another driver, because whilst you may gain initially in clear air, as we saw in the sprint race, being out of the toe, you could be losing up to half a second a lap just because you can't achieve the same top speeds as your rivals. But how will it play out? Who will pull the strategic masterclass? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the checkered flag comes out in this warm-up session. It is time to find out as we head to the grid for our second race of the day. And as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they're going to be lined up. We'll read it out, given the fact we can't give you a grid roll call, but it will be the top 5 inversion initially, with Nick Peterson starting on pole and joined on the front row by none other than Ray Aguilar. It'll then be Philippe Sarkis starting P3 on the second row of the grid ahead of Adam Merchant, with row 3 going to Jaden Callaway and James Turnbull. And then we will see Leo Delmar and Gail Rose P7 at P8 ahead of Richard Light and Robert Nobles to complete the top 10. Starting in what will be at P11, it will be none other than Ryan Thibault, and then we will have alongside him Gareth McAllister with Alec Guillory and Jason Mayer on row number 7, Arturo Mayorga and Michael Fairchild on row 8 ahead of Cameron Dance and Shahi Zaher. And your top 20 will be completed by Elliott Court and David Ayezi. We'll then have on the final row of the grid, starting P21 and P22, Christian Gritzko and Xavier Zainav respectively. But we look down towards the very front of the grid, and there's Nick Peterson in his maiden pole position for this season. And, well, the timer, of course, being a relatively short one for all the drivers to get themselves in position on the grid. I believe they only have 2 minutes, but just giving you that quick roll call or breakdown of how that grid will line up. And, well, the time towel there will be refreshed as soon as they do get off the line. But Peterson will know, as we just jump on board with him for a brief moment, he'll know it is a long stretch of tarmac down towards turn number 1, but you want to be leading coming out of that chicane, and you want to be starting to break away with the drivers behind you, but it's much easier said than done, no doubt about that. And when you do have Ray Aguilar start alongside you, the championship leader and the man who missed out in season 11 and fell short to Jaden Callaway, well, you can imagine that Aguilar, after that sensational start at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps with back-to-back podiums and that win in the feature, that Aguilar will not want to let what will be the win in race 2 go. But just a reminder, this grid has been set based on the sprint race results. The top 5 finishing positions were inverted, and that's why Nick Peterson starts on pole position because he finished P5 in the sprint. So hopefully that fills you in there, David Adiyi, in the YouTube chat. And well, Overdrive still just waiting out. And I think they are being given a bit of an extended time this time to get on to their grid positions. And well, I get the feeling that perhaps it was a little bit of a rush to jump to the grid last time out. Excuse me, in what was the run into the feature race at the Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, because there was only a minute for our drivers to get gridded, and I suspect that may have been a little bit of a clerical error which has been rectified. But we are just a couple of minutes away, and whether you're starting further down the order and you're the likes of Jace Mayer for Rabbit Racing, well, his thought process is going to be starting all the way down in what is none other than P14 on this grid. Okay, well, I need to stay out of danger and I need to make the progress and try and get myself into that top 10 as soon as possible. And if he can do so, well, it may be an opportunity for him to pick up some points that he lost in the first race of the day, albeit brought it on home inside the top 15, so it won't be as punishing as it could be. But of course, that frustration there, you want to be in the top 10 as soon as you possibly can, and you want to reliably finish there race after race and round after round, especially given there are only 6 rounds in this championship compared to the 9 we saw in season 11, and that completes the run in towards Christmas, of course. But as we look all the way further down towards the very back of the grid and look into Xavier Zainav, we sit on board here with the number 12. Here we start in last of our starters, P22. Well, he'll know that he's just got to try and stay clear of all the carnage into turns 1 and 2, if there is any, of course, but it is Monza and it is turn 1, and we'll name a more lethal or threatening combination, or frightening combination, I should say, in motorsport. I dare you. And well, the Rodent Junior driver from France here will know he can just pick up the pieces and make the progress from there, but he won't want to dilly-dally, because if the field starts to break when he can't pick up the toe, then he may be relegated to finishing where he is come the end of lap number 1, and that's a very frustrating feeling. But we are only about a minute away now from the grid being allowed to get underway, and that's why we're gradually seeing some drivers now getting themselves into position. And well, not too many more to go into position now. And well, as we look back towards our front man, Nick Peterson there, all set and ready to go. But of course, Ray Aguilar will give him the company on that front row of the grid. And well, that is going to be on his mind, and the fact that he is going to need to get the best possible order which he can. And well, the Squid Game Racing team absolutely nailed the start in the sprint race, and they're starting P4, P5 just behind. And you have Philippe Sarkis, the man who could really throw a spanner in the works at the top 5 here, given the fact the Brazilian driver played a very cool and collected race number 1, put pressure onto Squid Game Racing, but at the same time didn't overexert himself in that race. And well, he will be thinking about what he can do in race number 2, and will he want to be leading come the end of lap number 1, or will he want to tuck in? Remember, fuel saving is not a factor here. They've got the fuel tanks to go to the end of the race. They can't put fuel in the cars in the pit stop. All they can do is change tyres. But who is going to feel as though they're a bit of a tyre whisperer, and who might be of the mindset here in the fact that they need to try and get to the halfway point of this race and split the tyre wear? Remember, they must change all 4 tyres on these cars in their mandatory pit stop, so therefore tyre management could be key if you are planning to go deep into the race and then perhaps only do 2 or 3 laps on that fresh set of tyres. As the drivers get themselves all ready to go, well, right now we are just 3 drivers away from being green flagged, and well, as they all get themselves all set, we are just now waiting for the last couple of drivers to take their positions. And well, everyone right now absolutely itching. Those engines, of course, will be boiling hot, and indeed it'll be hot in those cockpits. And well, Robert Noble's finished P10 in race number 1. That's exactly where he starts in race number 2. And what can he do from the 5th row of the grid? Could he potentially spring a surprise? Could he get a top 5, his first top 5 in his first round of the championship for this season? Well, there's all questions that we need to have answered, and well, we will get those answers in due course, as we are now just 2 cars away. 1 car away, in fact. Shahi's ahead, the last try to take his spot. You can see Ray Aguilar there, and Zuhair not making it to the grid, perhaps starting from the pit lane. He is indeed. So the lights are going on, ladies and gentlemen. It's Peterson on the right, Aguilar on the left, and without further ado, it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the day in round 2 of the championship. Peterson with a slow start, and Aguilar immediately takes the lead. Car off into the grass there. That's Christian Gritzko taking a brief adventure, and as they head on down, Adam Merchant picks his way up the inside, can't quite get ahead of Aguilar, but as they all head on through the opening couple of quarters, there's the Serpentine and the Concertina effect. Many a driver making contact. 3 wide there coming out of turn 2. I don't think I've ever seen that in my history of motorsport, whether it's simulated or real life, but they were able to survive it. Brilliant awareness from Gerald Rolls, also Cameron Dance and Ryan Tebow. They've all survived it, but at the front of the field, Adam Merchant's up into the lead. He dives the inside there into the Regina chicane, and the number 41 driver is not wasting any time as Jaden Callaway, meanwhile, stuck squabbling here with Richard Lai going into Lesmo 1. And what a contrast of fortunes there for the Squid Game Racing team. A phenomenal start from Adam Merchant. Meanwhile, for Jaden Callaway, well, I get the feeling the number 1 driver here may be playing a bit of a risk-adverse race. After taking victory in what was the sprint race, he doesn't want to gamble too early on in this one and will gradually feed his way in. But as they make the way down Cerro Calero, you can see everybody queuing up behind here and itching for position as Leo Del Mar covering off the outside versus Robert Nobles into Ascari. And Noble's not putting too much pressure in there and focusing on the longer picture as they make the way down towards Parabolica. But as they do, Michael Fairchild also on the hunt here, and all 22 of our starters safely through the corners at the start of this race. It's great to see they've all made it through with very limited, if no damage at all. But Fairchild now cutting back to the inside, looking for the movement to Parabolica versus McAllister. In the end, throttling his own braking opportunity there, and well, not quite able to make the movers. Meanwhile, Elliot Cott making his way up the inside of what is Xavier Zainav, and as they make the way down towards lap number 2. Well, no change at the moment, it would seem. Side by side they go, but in the end Zainav will back off there as they head into the braking zone, and just in front Gail Rolls, a major lock up there. The Rodent Racing driver on the inside to outside. We've had some damage on one of our drivers. I'm not quite sure who's missing body parts there, but it looks as though that's a plate of a front wing that's come off of somebody's car, and well, if it was Rolls' car, that's some major damage. Oh my goodness, and Robert Nobles into the gravel there, coming through Cover Bazzano. I'm not quite sure what sent him on his way to playing Sandcastles, but that is going to be a very frustrating moment in the gravel trap there. And well, his race for Nobles is now in the pit lane under tow, but I can imagine that's going to put him at least a lap down, if not more so. But more battling to come here as all the drivers continue to intensify the racing. And Nick Peterson, well, he's in P4 and trying to keep Jaden Callaway behind. Peterson, who started on pole, but had a very slow start. Callaway at the inside here, and Peterson letting it go. And 9, it's better to work with his rivals at this stage rather than battle too hard, otherwise they'll lose the top 3. And in the end, they'll be looking to bring Richard Lai and also James Turnbull into this fight. And that's the last thing they want to do, all things considered, especially when right now your top 2 have already got a 3-second gap over Sarkis in P3. And well, how much time can be made up in the pits? That's another question as well. And I've got feeling says that Minus absolutely nailing that run to the pit limiter line. It may not be possible, but after 2 laps of racing, it's Adam Merchant who leads at a Ray Aguilar P2. And then we have Philippe Sarkis P3, ahead of Jaden Callaway P4, Nick Peterson P5, Richard Lyons in P6, ahead of James Turnbull P7. Then we have Leo Delmar P8, ahead of Ryan Tebow P9, and Eric Guillory, who's had an absolutely back and forth day so far, battling right now versus Ryan Tebow for P9. It's Guillory on the inside, Tebow on the outside, and Guillory gets ahead. A lovely move there and moves up to P9 with Cameron Dance waiting in the wings. P11 as meanwhile, it's a huge squabble driver off into the gravel there, and that is the car of what is Xavier Zainav that's been knocked about. And well, Michael Fairchild, who in the end backed the wrong horse, went around the outside instant. Oh my goodness, it goes straight on there. There's more visible damage now, and there was damage coming out of that chicane that we didn't see, but the whole front left suspension goes on Fairchild's car, and Fairchild has to tow to the pits, and that is now our 3rd car that might be out of this race, given Nobles, Fairchild, McAllister and Gritzko as well. Christian Gritzko involved in an incident off camera, and well, it's all going horribly wrong now on lap number 3, whereas in race 1 it was all about lap number 1 and 2. Well, lap number 3 seems to be the bogey lap this time around. But as Tebow here battling still Guillory, and well, coming back, and these two absolutely going all in as he makes his way on through, coming out of what is turn number 10, and Tebow not holding anything back here versus Guillory. Well, given that Delmar is 4 seconds up the road, I would imagine here that both drivers right now more interested in their own fight. But meanwhile, speaking of fights, that's 4 wide down the back stretch here, and well, going on to the ground, that's Shahi Zuhair. You don't normally go 3 wide, let alone 4 wide. I think they're experimenting with how wide the circuit is, as we can see that David Iezzi running the Ferrari colours here at Monza, the Ferrari home circuit, if you will, if you do exclude the likes of what is Imola. And well, as they make the way on down towards turn number 1, Iezzi right now in another 3 wide altercation with what is Mayorga and also Jace Mayer. Shahi Zahair tucked in behind, and in the end it is going to be up the inside for the BMR driver, and Mayorga takes the inside and takes 2 places in the space of 1 chicane, and an absolutely brilliant move there as Mior taking to the escape road. That's Xavier Zainab, who's having to take it very slowly coming out of the chicane after an error under braking. But as they come in towards and turns 4 and 5, still more fighting going on here, and well, the number 29 absolutely digging in with the prancing horse spirit, but in the end it's going to be the 55 that makes his way for his eye as he is sent around, and I think there he may have been given a small tap on the rear as he tries to get the car back to go over the sausage curb. That will not help the suspension at all, but Ayazi will now need to see if that car is damaged and whether he can carry on or not as he makes his way in towards what is the 2 Lesmos. Well, that be a good indication of how much suspension damage he has as a result of that incident. Unfortunately for Ayazi, some brilliant battling as Jace Mayer, meanwhile, now's to try and fend off Shahi Zahair for P15. Zahair looking around the outside, tries to go for the cutback, but Mayer just parks in the apex and says, I've seen that one coming plenty of times before, try something original, and well, Zahair will do exactly that as they make the way down the back straight in towards what will be the Parabolica curve, albeit he's going to take his time here and start to build up to a move as Mayorga cuts his way through the bottom of our camera and is starting to run away with this in their battle for what is P14 and upwards. Meanwhile, looking back to the front of the field, Adam Merchant is now starting to build an advantage. It's 1 second between himself and Aguilar as they head upwards towards turns 4 and 5. But keeping in mind here that we might be seeing the deployment of the overtake button a bit more from Merchant at this point in the race compared to Aguilar, and this will be where it's all about tactically using the push to pass or overtake button to try and improve the lap time just enough to open up a gap and break the toe. Conversely, of course, Aguilar might have a different strategy. He might be looking to go long and therefore be protecting the tyres by comparison with Merchant, who may be opting to pit around the halfway point, and Aguilar may decide by comparison to pit right towards the end of the race. So long as he doesn't take the pit stop on the final lap, he can do it on any lap from lap 5 all the way up to the penultimate lap. But the American driver right now staying in the hub as he comes out of Ascari. And that gap still just teetering on the edge of 1 second. And you can see in the rear of the picture, Jayden Callaway back in the P3 with Philippe Sarkis following behind. But Sarkis playing a very, very calm approach to this race, no doubt about it. And I wonder what Sarkis' game plan is here, in the fact that whilst he has been battling hard to follow after the Squid Game Racing drivers, he's always let himself become the second driver in this pack. He's always the follower rather than the leader. But perhaps he feels as though in this feature race, the race will come to him gradually based on perhaps tyre protection, alternatively that he'll just wait to pounce towards the end, and he wants Callaway to pull the pair of them up to Aguilar and Merchant. And well, it's a gamble to do that, but I have to see where it pays off for him as Eric Guillory meanwhile up the inside there of Cameron Dance. As Dance is into the pits, he decides it's time to pit after he was caught out of Spa-Francorchamps by pitting, if my memory serves me correctly, at the end of lap 4, which was not allowed, albeit I think there was a bit of a misclarification with regards to the rules at the time, and therefore I think his result did stand after Ace. Didn't see anything in the post-round stewarding report, but meanwhile, as Shahi Zahair up the inside there of Arturo Mayorga will take in P13 back from the BMR driver, who seems to be struggling a little bit. You'll notice that the car just wobbling on power coming out of turn 2. Might have also been the tight exit angle of the corner, to be fair to Mayorga. But if he has got damage, he's trying not to let it show as they head in towards the braking zone here for Regia. And we're looking up the inside. Zahair sees it coming and gives the space, but in the end, absolutely nails on the approach. And Shahi Zahair retains P13 for Kraken Racing. We're going through the Lesmos and out towards what will be Lesmo 2 shortly, and then they'll find Sergler, which is where we find these two of Ryan Thibault and Elliot Court as they come through the left into right, and as he comes on around for returns 9 and 10 to complete the Ascari chicane, and we'll power the way on down Court right now, looking for the move, albeit he can't quite find it at this time, and instead he'll be looking all the way through. In fact, he does go for the move there, and Thibault does not fight it too much as they come out of the right-hander and onwards towards the start-finish line. They'll go once again, and what it does seem as though Thibault here playing the game of, you know what, let's just work together and not cost each other time, because Delmar is only 4 seconds up the road and perhaps we can catch him. And given the fact that Elliot Court's lap that last time around was a 29.36, where if the two drivers can keep working together like this, they will gain approximately 6 tenths a lap over Delmar, whose lap times are in the low 30s by comparison. But coming on to lap number 7, we'll have to wait and see whether that is how they plan to work together or whether Court is just going to run away. As meanwhile, Gale rolls the car up on the jacks there, being serviced, and that's going to be his pit stop. Xavier Zainab the same, and will both drivers now taking that pit stop nice and early, but the majority of the field opting to stay out quite long, or at least the top 10 staying out there as long as possible. And the logic here, if you're a top 10 driver, is that you don't want to pit and come out in traffic, which could scupper your race, and therefore, particularly if you're one of the top 5, you want to pit as late as possible and focus your pit stop strategy around the drivers near you rather than the wider field. And it's an interesting context in terms of how pit stops work up and down the field, in the fact if you're towards the front, well, as a leader, you don't necessarily want to gamble on what would be coming out in traffic, and you don't really want to risk the undercut, whereas if you're a driver further down the order, you may have the mindset of, I've got nothing to lose, I might as well go for the undercut and pit as early as possible, and I might get myself some clear air, and I may be able to slam some laps in, whereas my rivals may end up fighting on circuit. But of course, if you find the traffic, you may then have to battle past the traffic, as we do see here a bit of a side-by-side between James Turnbull and Richard Lye, and well, Turnbull swap into the inside there before the braking zone. Lye switches to the outside, and Lye's not going to be daunted by this. It's a brilliant attempt from Richard Lye. Turnbull stays there as they exit Rettifilio. 2 wide they go, both fighting over the toe of Peterson in front, and Peterson being cheeky there and gifting it to one and then the other. And well, Peterson showing no favourites, getting the 2 drivers of Turnbull and Lye to fight. James Turnbull gets back ahead. Lye tries to get to the inside, but Turnbull brings it across. A little bit late there in the cut across, but I think he'll get away with that one. But I think Lye might have a word with him afterwards, and as they head in towards turn 6 and 7, brilliant racing between these two as we ride on board with the man who's playing the role of Cat as he chases after the mouse of Turnbull, and that is Richard Lye as he heads through turn number 7. And that dirty air there, you'll notice the car just sliding off of the apex rather than being gripped up, and that is the effect of the dirty air here coming down towards turns 8, 9 and 10 at Ascari. And the funny thing is, when I was catching up with a number of the drivers down in the pit lane in the build up to this round, well, the fuel load that originally was put in the car was of a certain amount. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was enough to get our drivers to the end of this feature race, albeit they weren't at risk if they absolutely went all in on the race, and they weren't at risk of running out of fuel on the final lap, literally coming out the final corner. So it was decided to put 5 more litres of fuel in the car to make sure they could go full throttle for the entirety of the race. But a number of drivers were commenting on the fact with that extra weight put in behind the driver or at the rear of the car, because that's where the engine is and that's where the fuel tank is, it's actually made these cars very unstable for the medium speed corners, particularly the Lesmos, and we're seeing that combination of Lye being in the dirty air plus also a heavy fuel load and the car sliding around as they make their way from right into left. And well, a little bit of power oversteer there from Turnbull as he chased after Peterson, but Peterson has been reeled back into this fight very rapidly indeed, as meanwhile Cameron Dance is chasing after Gale Rolls, and well, these two are both taking their mandatory pit stop. And well, here's the point here, the fact if you're Cameron Dance right now, I think he feels as though he's a much faster driver compared to Rolls. No insult meant to the British driver, but right now the driver from the Oceania region absolutely pushing onwards as much as possible and trying to do everything in his power in order to break away. But as the New Zealander gets head for a brief moment, Rolls is now there and is looking up for the counter attack as they head down the start for this straight. 2 wide they'll go all the way down towards Rettifilio, but will they be 2 wide under braking because Dance is going to be on the outside, Rolls will be on the inside. He turns in, does Dance, and will Rolls the backs out there, knowing I think they're costing each other time, and it's going to be Dance who will try and lead them up towards Arturo Mayorga, who has yet to pit, and the same for Eric Guillory. Shahi Zahir has pitted, and well, right now Dance and Rolls will just want to make sure that they are chasing down the tail end of the top 10 based on strategy. But from our drivers here battling for P14 on circuit, we come back to the battle for P8, and this is Del Mar being chased by Elliott Court as they head out of turn number 11 and up towards what will be turn number 1. They'll go once again, but as they come onwards towards that braking zone, well, the number 21 driver here from France, we'll see that he's got his rival looking around the outside, and will Del Mar fight this? No, he won't. He backs off there, he lifts off and tucks in, and there is the sign. They're trying to work together here in order to catch up to the pack in front, and the fighting between Peterson, Turnbull and Lye continues to intensify. And the question we have in the chat in regards to the pit stops, are they Formula 1 level fast? Not quite. We are seeing the the stationary pit times here in the Super Formula SF23 cars have been in the region of approximately what is 10 to 11 seconds. And, well, that all comes down to the 4 tyres being changed. They are changed rather rapidly, but not quite in the perspective of what is the 2 to 3.5 seconds that you see in Formula 1. So therefore, it's a little bit more pit time by comparison with the premier open wheel racing series around the world, and this being the premier Japanese Formula machine that is Super Formula. And I do believe the regulations around pit stops in Super Formula being just a little bit different, and that explains the time difference there. But as they head onwards towards turn number 11, well, Jaden Callaway, meanwhile, holding on to P3 at this time as he heads towards the end of this lap and onto an 11th turn of the circuit. They go under race conditions, and we're coming across the timeline. Adam Merchant still leading this race, and in fact Merchant's gap absolutely breaking away, and the Squid Gang Racing driver roaring off into the distance as Ray Aguilar right now, the Avanti Autosport driver, seeing that gap just going in one direction lap after lap, and well, it's been opened up by a 10th or 2 a lap on average, and Adam Merchant really turning the screw here as meanwhile, well, that is going to be Turnbull versus Peterson. Turnbull around the outside through turn 2, making the move there for P5. But again, now Peterson's back in the tow, and he'll be thinking, okay, well, you've got ahead of me, so what? I'm now in the draft. Turnbull tries to cover him off, but Peterson's already to the inside. Onto the brakes they go, but Turnbull brakes a little bit late, so you can see they just about stops it in time. But James Turnbull absolutely pushing his car to the absolute limit as we ride on board and look back as they head out of what is the right hand and in towards turn number 7. And we're coming on through the corner. Number 83 driver right now will absolutely dig it in here. Doesn't want to let P5 go. And I think Peterson and Lai would both love to get past. Firstly, to take P5 off him, but also they perhaps feels that they could catch up to Philippe Sarkis or Jaden Callaway in the fight for P3, P4. But the problem is when Turnbull's digging in as much as he is, it's only going to cost them time to fight. But credit where it's due to James Turnbull. He's sticking himself to this P5 fight, and he's doing so in an absolutely admirable fashion. I think he feels though this is the fastest he can go, and his fight is with Peterson and Lai today for all the points that are available to them as they head out of Parabolica Curve and onto lap number 12. As he comes off of the apex there and powering his way down that lovely roar of the Honda 4-cylinder 2-litre engine. But here comes Lai, you can see it, look into the inside left of your picture. Peterson in the end in the tyre. Turnbull goes defensive, seeing that Lai's got a huge overspeed. Lai goes as late as possible on the brakes. Does he get it stopped in time? Lock up on the front right brake, but Richard Lai coming from so far back and in the end gets it stopped, and the double toe. Well, Richard Lai, take a bow, because what a move there for P5. Turnbull, to be fair, gave the racing room where it was required, but Richard Lai getting that car stopped, it won't have helped the brakes, but right now it helps us enjoy some even more brilliant battling action as Turnbull tries to come back. Left into right they go, but of course this has brought Court into the fight, and well behind them Leo Del Mar is closing. 2.5 seconds is to Del Mar, but the Englishman here of Blue Passport Motorsport getting very close as they are, oh my goodness, a major contact there between what was Peterson to the rear of Turnbull, and in the Constantina, Court hits the rear of Peterson, and it turns Court around, and that is going to be absolutely fuming and frustrating for the number 23 driver, who was right on the back of that battle, did not expect it to happen. And well, it looks like the damage may be superficial in terms of the damage to the bodywork of the car, but as he makes his way down Cerro Cleo, he's lost a lot of time, and he may need to go into the pits for some repair work. As meanwhile, Lion Turnbull continues to fight, and Turnbull's just carrying on as if nothing happened. Meanwhile, as I look out my commentary booth window, Aguilar is into the pit lane from what was P2. He's being serviced. Oh, and it's gone wrong there. Turnbull's around and he collects Richard Lai. They all come together, and into the pits comes Nick Peterson, and it's drama at Parabolica. As Lai turns the car around, it's a tow to the bits for Turnbull, and I think the initial contact damaged something on the rear suspension, and trying to carry all that speed around the outside, when then the car just let go. Most of them are able to make it into the pits. This is going to completely shuffle the battle for P5, but unfortunately for James Turnbull, he gets put back a lap as a result of that tow, and that is going to be a huge sting in the tail, whereas Richard Lai and Nick Peterson are just about to stay in there, and also Elliot Court, who is now going to serve a second pit stop for the day, or in fact I think he's only serving one pit stop of the day. He's just had his pit stop brought forward. Meanwhile, after all that has happened, and in fact Court has been able to time that as his mandatory pit stop. Well, I don't think he planned for it to play out that way, but it's practically at the halfway point of the race, so he's going to go for the gamble. And well, meanwhile, Jaden Callaway under pressure from Philippe Sarkis for P2. at least on circuit, keeping in mind, of course, Ray Aguilar is the leading driver who has pitted, so he's in P6 currently. He's closing up to Ryan Tebow quite rapidly. Tebow is, I believe, 5.5 seconds up the road from Aguilar, so if Aguilar doesn't catch him, it could work out quite nicely for Aguilar in the long-term picture. But, of course, Callaway and Sarkis right now, they're just staying as they are. It's a very tight line through Parabolica there for Sarkis, and Callaway also dives into the pit, so both drivers in, and they decide to split this race identically in half in order to preserve the tyres. And the tyres going 13 laps, and we'll go another 13, as meanwhile Adam Merchant just carries on his own merry way. And right now the Squid Gang Racing driver, with a gap of what was 4.5 seconds when Aguilar pitted, he'll feel as though he can just control this race and he can take it all the way to the end. It's going to be a lonely race here for Merchant, but he knows he's in a strategy battle, not an on-track battle with the Avanti Motorsport and the championship leader as was coming into this round. But coming out of it, it may be a different story. But as the drivers make the way down into the braking zone, well, there you can see Jaden Callaway, who in fact has caught up to Aguilar through the pit stop. The gap has been slashed considerably, and that gap has come down by the best part of what has been 4 seconds. And right now Aguilar only 8 tenths up the road. Philippe Sarkis 1.1 seconds behind, so they've closed up tremendously. And this could put what is none other than Aguilar under major pressure for the remainder of this race, and potentially Adam Merchant may have just bought himself the win, not for anything he's done apart from being consistent and staying up front, but the fact that his teammate may be able to put pressure on Aguilar. And Jaden Callaway, surely will be getting the call in his ear right now. It's push, 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 Jaden. We need you to bring home this 1-2, because that's what he's chasing down as a second place right now, and it could be back-to-back 1-2s for Squid Gang Racing after what was a lockout on the front row in qualifying. But as they head on down towards Ascari, that's the theory, but will it come into practice? That is the big question, as meanwhile Eric Guillory has recently been passed by both Nick Peterson and Elliot Cord. But as they head up towards what will be Ascari for them, well, it's going to be the question now of whether Peterson can potentially break away from Cord. My gut feeling says no. This is going to be the battle part 2 as they come in towards Ascari, and it was so close between the two of them before it all went wrong. But as Peterson makes his way through the left-hander, the privateer right now just keeping his head down, keeping his composure. But the problem is there that Court not too far behind and looking around the outside here in towards Parabolica Curve. It'll be a battle on the brakes, side by side they go. Peterson's not going to give in, but Court has got the confidence, he's got the grip, albeit a little bit of wobble there on where's the AstroTurf. And as he makes his way out, where is going to be a move made there for P8 for now, as meanwhile Tebow and Zahara leaving the pit lane. And well, where's Court and Peterson in all of this? It's free wide for a brief moment, but as you can see there, Elliot Cord and what is going to be Peterson still battling. 2-1 they go in towards Retfilio. Caught ahead on the apex of turn 2, and Elliot Cord finally gets the move completed. He started it all the way back at Ascari, and well, he's now made it finish come the run out of Retfilio in towards Covabizzano. But Nick Peterson absolutely digging as much as possible and refusing to budge. And well, Nick Peterson I think is going to be one of the drivers to watch for the entirety of this season, because what a brilliant set of defensive drivers he's put on over the course of today so far, and there may still be more to come from the number 24 driver. Meanwhile, as I look at my control booth window, in fact a cameraman picks him up. Here is Adam Merchant, your race leader, and he's coming on in. He was 4.5 seconds ahead when we did see Ray Aguilar come into the pits. Leo Delmar has yet to pit, as you point out, the only driver who has yet to pit compared to all of his rivals. Merchant making his pit stop, and Delmar goes on to lead a lap of the race. Delmar, we have not seen that this season so far, but the Rodent Junior driver very happy of where he is on circuit right now. Meanwhile, as we did see Merchant making his way out of the pit lane, well, he is still 3 seconds clear of Aguilar and Jaden Callaway. But intriguingly, Merchant has lost overall race time with a much more passive and conservative pit stop. The stationary pit time for Adam Merchant, 7.8 seconds. For Ray Aguilar and Jaden Callaway, 6.8 seconds for the both of them. So I think Adam Merchant taking the approach of, you know what, I don't need to panic in the pits. I just need to get this pit stop done, and I need to get it done sensibly. Whereas Aguilar and Callaway are chasing race time and therefore pushing on. But the gap still 3 seconds from Merchant to Aguilar, and that is essentially your lead battle with what is Jaden Callaway in the wings at 6 tenths off the back of Aguilar, and then at Sarkis a further 2 seconds behind. So we've got a top 4 separated by 5 seconds in totality currently, and well, they'll all be in a single picture when they make their way down the start-finish straight next time around. As they head in towards Ascari will mean, well, with all the battling going on, Let's talk a little bit about our leader, at least leader on circuit, but not leader on strategy, and that's Leo Del Mar, the Rodent Junior driver who still needs to pit, but right now running a very strong race here and staying out of trouble, and by going long, what he's gambling on or predicating this race on is the fact that everybody he would be battling against for what will be the second half of the top 10 is busy fighting, but he's into the pits then, he decides he wants to take the tyres, only a grand total of 16 laps, no further, and therefore give himself some reasonable tyre life over the course of the second half of the race distance, but as he makes way down, Jaden Callaway sets the fastest lap, a 28.625, aided by the slipstream of Aguilar in front of him, and Callaway now starting to get a little bit fidgety. There's a bit of a twitch coming here from the number 1 driver. He wants to get past Aguilar. He'd love to make it back-to-back wins, but at minimum he'd love to make it back-to-back 1-2s for Squid Game Racing here in Monza, but Aguilar is not going to give in if he can help it, and as they make the way around, what about Leo Del Mar? He leaves the pit lane, and there's the proof in the pudding. Look at how Del Mar has jumped up the race in order. Keeping in mind, when all the pit stops started, Del Mar was P8. He's come out P5 and he's bought himself a 2-second gap over Elliot Court, who has been so busy battling with Nick Peterson, Cameron Dance and Gale Rolls, albeit we've loved the battling, but Court's now going to look in front of him, and you'll hear on the radio from the team principal shortly, and that is Leo Del Mar. He has jumped you in the pits, he has jumped 3 places on the field, and now the game will be for Court to try and catch up to Del Mar and find a way back into the top 5, but as they come from left into right, there's still a way to go. We've still got a sizable number of laps in this race, and therefore it's not over yet, and well, the Blue Passport Motorsport driver is a shining example of a driver not to give in until the very final lap, and in fact he is catching very quickly. As Del Mar there seems to be struggling to get the tyres switched on, and when these tyres come out of the jackets, but it's not quite the same as thermal temperature of the road surface. Meanwhile, Aguilar under pressure from Callaway, as Callaway takes a sneak peek to the inside, trying to get into his rival's head. A bit of a dummy there, was never going to fully commit to the move, but you can see Aguilar staying very close to the inside wall. They are permitted to drive over the white line and take the inside wall if needed, and well, as they make the way down the start-finish straight, will there be a move here from what will be Callaway up the inside? He's going to think about it, but Aguilar not wilting under the pressure. Meanwhile, Court has made his way past Del Mar in towards Parabolica, and Leo Del Mar deciding not to fight it too hard but tuck into the toe of the Briton, and I think the Frenchman deciding it's better to be in the draft at this point in the race rather than throw things away and throw things to the wolves of being caught by Nick Peterson and Cameron Dance. But meanwhile, we come back to the battle for P2, and just in time as Jaden Callaway cuts to the inside of Aguilar into turns 4 and 5, and as he does so, he takes the lead in this battle for P2, but Aguilar is not going to give in as we look back from the rear of the number 1, and will the 72 absolutely itching for a fight here in the capable hands of Aguilar as they head on towards the Serraglio straight. We've still got the best part of 9 laps to go, including the one we're currently on, and well, right now this battle for P2 could take another dimension as Philippe Sarkis is now only 1.7 seconds off of it, and is it closing rapidly with the brig of the battle that is being put on here between our 2 drivers who are fighting over the 2nd and 3rd spots of the podium. We're coming down towards turn number 11. Here comes Aguilar. Will he go for it? Callaway goes defensive. I think Callaway here knows he can't hold the position forever as they go side by side into the apex, but as they exit, well, there's still room given there to Aguilar. Callaway on a tighter exit line. He will find that his exit speed is compromised. It's going to be a drag race as a personal best is set for Adam Merchant, your race leader, a 28.650 to they come then down towards turn number 1. Callaway on the inside, on the left of your picture. Meanwhile, Aguilar on the right, and their positions are swapped around there as the camera turns with them. But what we can note indefinitely there is that Callaway and Aguilar's fighting has now brought Sarkis a further 4 attempts closer. And what you can see there, the pictures do not lie on your television, as the number 4 driver from Brazil right now for Kraken Racing is watching this and really is becoming a dark horse in the race here at Monza, and the fact he's looking ever threatening and looming, and we're waiting to see what he chooses to do. We're coming out of the apexes there of the chicane, more in towards the Lesmos he goes once more, now less than a second as Callaway and Aguilar absolutely intensifying, and we ride on board the front wing of Aguilar as he makes his way out of Lesbo 2, and we can see the gap opens up for a brief moment to 3.5 tenths as the natural order of dirty air through the medium speed apexes, but he'll close very rapidly as they head in towards Ascari, and full commitment here from both drivers as they go left, right and then left once again. And Aguilar staying close, thinking about where he can make that move, but the gap opened up to 3 tenths for Ascari. It is closing back down to 2 tenths here, halfway down towards Parabolica curve, and well, can he go for the move? No, he can't. The number 72 driver waiting his turn, but he'll have a better opportunity this time around as he comes out towards Parabolica, but Sarkis is now half a second behind, and will the top 4, all in a single camera shot for a brief moment. It's battle for P2 through the P4 here that takes centre stage as they head on to lap number 20, and Aguilar looks to the inside. 2 wide they go, and Callaway holds the outside here. 9, Aguilar is there, but he's also got to be mindful of Sarkis and what he can do from further back. Aguilar takes P2, but makes a little bit of a ham sandwich of the second apex there of Rettivilio, and gets it stopped in time. Meanwhile, new fastest lap of the race, a 28.414, and I believe that's been done without any slipstream. That's Blue Passport Motorsports' Elliott Court, who is absolutely flying out there. As behind, meanwhile, Cameron Dance looking to the outside versus Nick Peterson. Peterson on the inside on the left of your picture. Peterson defending hard as they make the way for the opening chicane. Back towards the leaders, and Jaden Callaway has retaken the P2 of Aguilar coming into what was the second chicane. They roar the way out of turn 7 now, coming out of Lesmo 2. We've got battles left, right and centre. We'll try and keep you updated with each and every one of them. And as they make the way down Seraglio, you can see Callaway defending every inch, every mile, as the gap to Merchant now to 6.4 seconds at one point. In fact, back down to 6 seconds. I think there was a small error into Ascari from Merchant, maybe a lock-up. But as they head in towards Parabolica, we can see that it really is the game of follow the leader, and they've got a little bit of traffic 4 seconds up the road in the form of Eric Guillory. Now, can they catch up to the BMR driver, and potentially could Callaway use Guillory as a stepping stone? Of course, blue flag rules will apply, but Callaway will be grateful if he can catch that toe even for a lap, as it will keep him safe for that lap, and that may give him some breathing room, as right now Callaway really is the leader and he can never break away given the fact he's got nobody to tow off of. As Aguilar looks to the inside again, Sarkis thinks about getting involved but decides not to. 2 wide they go to the apex, and Jaden Callaway defends outside to inside, and Aguilar just not able to make the move as Callaway starts to find his number. Sarkis meanwhile now starting to get an itch on. I would imagine he's thinking, okay, we'll get the fact that Aguilar can't find his way through. Can I potentially get involved here, or is he really just playing the long game here of hoping the 2 in front take each other out and he can just take P2 without exerting himself too hard? Well, the only person who's going to know that will be his team principal, and of course in the minor fleet Sarkis himself, as they head through turn number 6 and through the Lesmos they go once more on lap 21 and 26 here, through the second of the right hand as the Lesmos, and right now Sarkis just waiting. In terms of that battle for B7, Cameron Dance has cleared Nick Peterson to the best part of 6 tenths at this time, and therefore that battle has been suspended for a brief moment. Jaden Callaway off racing line, they're trying to break the toe to Aguilar, and as we jump on board with Philippe Sarkis looking down over the driver's position in the cockpit, we can see that Aguilar running as wide as he possibly can within allowances without picking up an automated slowdown or picking up instant points of track limits, and that is simply because he wants to try and maximise the speed he carries out of Ascari to go on the attack. Sarkis in the popcorn seat view, as we like to refer to, where he's got the absolute front row seat view of the battle in front of him, and still places bets. He picks up the double toe, and it's when they get to top speed at 189 miles an hour that slipstream will catapult them to 200 miles an hour, and that's where they suddenly get this huge amount of overspeed as Aguilar demonstrates it there. Around the outside he's going to go. Callaway, this time on the inside, is completely swamped by Aguilar's move, and Aguilar makes it into P2 as they power their way in towards Cobo Bazzano. Fastest lap of the race improves to a 28.373. That is Elliott Court once again, who is 17.5 seconds off of this battle, and he must be ruined what happened earlier. But meanwhile, here comes Callaway back versus Aguilar. Up the inside goes Callaway in towards Regia, and as they come on through left into right, Callaway gets back it, and Aguilar just caught out in the run of that second chicane, and I think right now that is where his weakness is, and Callaway knows it, which is these chicanes. Aguilar just does not seem to feel comfortable at either being the leader into them or what is the chaser into them, and Callaway is able to find his way back, albeit as they make the way up towards Ascari. Well, right now the laps are running out, and all the data needs to be analysing each other at 170 miles an hour plus will all be programmed in, as it's going to be Aguilar around the outside of Callaway into Ascari, and notice there Callaway backed off, and the reason he did that was because going too wide into Ascari, you both have to compromise the best part of 30 miles an hour through the first apex to survive a too wide there without running each other off the road. And the thing is, they don't want Sarkis to get the better run, and that's another thing that Sarkis is doing. You may have seen it in towards Rettivilio. He's falling back intentionally through the apexes, and that is because he wants to slingshot his way out the corner. If he's too close, he can't capitalise on his rivals fighting. So Sarkis is playing the game here of just wait for them to make the mistake and gain the two places. But Callaway back up the inside into the first chicane, and this time Aguilar tries to squeeze Callaway a little bit towards the apex of turn 1. It doesn't quite work, and Callaway is still there side by side coming in towards turn number 3 through the right-hander. They roar their way now. Both drivers absolutely full throttle. I can imagine here it's going to come down to who's got the energy left at the end. And you can see that Aguilar tries to come across, tries to squeeze Callaway as much as possible, but Jaden Callaway will not be squeezed too much. Oh no! It's all gone wrong for Ray Aguilar, and too much of the sausage curve with a rear left tyre from the driver's perspective kicks him around, and Aguilar loses front wing, and that is going to be a gradual trip to the pit lane. Can he get it home? No, I don't think he can. It's going to have to be towed, and Aguilar's race is in bits. It's in tears, and Ray Aguilar is out of the hunt for the podium. And now Jaden Callaway, can he hold off Philippe Sarkis all the way to the end to make this a 1-2 for the Squid Gang Racing, albeit be Adam Merchant who'll take the win that he missed out on in the sprint race. Well, still, for the team, it'll be a huge result, and for both drivers, it could be a huge result as well. But Sarkis will look to try and prevent that becoming a reality. But you've got to feel for Avanti Autosports, Ray Aguilar, and the fact he was pushing and pushing hard. But in the end, Jaden Callaway found a way to get the upper hand and force Aguilar to make an error in their two-wide altercation. But coming across the line, 3 laps still to go. But Adam Merchant, meanwhile, if you're wondering where he is, he's 10 seconds clear of the rest of the lead pack. You can see them in the rear of the pitch. They haven't even reached Rettifilio, let alone clear the apexes. And a Merchant, meanwhile, is just roaring his way on around here. And right now, he can take it nice and easy. Albeit the one thing you don't want to do, perhaps in these cars, is take it too easy, because once you start to take your foot off the gas, it can mean that actually that's where you start to make mistakes. Indeed, many of you may be aware of certain Formula 1 drivers who have a philosophy which is all based around that, and none more so than the late great legend Ayrton Senna, whereby normally if he was told to back things off, and he did back off, that's when the mistakes came. As the Brazilian driver here, Philippe Sarkis, channeling his own Ayrton Senna away, trying to hunt down Callaway for P2. He falls back there after a poor run through the Regia chicane, and it looks as though the Kraken Racing driver may have just run out a little bit of momentum. Perhaps the tyres are going against him here. You know, Hardy's had to work in the double toe in order to stay with Callaway and Aguilar up to the point of Aguilar making that error. Well, if so, then this might be Jaden Callaway's race to run away with for P2, as a personal best set off screen for P12 driver Mayorga. Arturo Mayorga making some progress, but our battles are now starting to run out a little bit of steam up and down the field here, and we still do have what is 13 runners in this race, 12 on the lead lap. Eric Guillory being the one who's a lap down, as I stumble over my words there, and the BMR driver right now just trying to push on to get to the end here and bring home the result, which is always a good thing to see. And every lap turn is a little bit of experience, no doubt about it. And as he makes his way up towards what will be for him his 24th lap, but he'll finish this race with 25 laps complete, being a lap down on our leader, where his focus right now will be just get the car home and bag the result. As he misses his braking point, and the car goes straight on, and having to go through the slalom, a very, very painful slalom procedure, and you don't want to hit those concrete bollards in the fact that they won't budge, and in the end they'll just take chunks out of the car. But as the BMR driver now gets himself back up to speed, well, we look to the front of the field. From the back of the field to the very front of it, Adam Merchant, only one more lap to go after this one. And, well, he'll finally bring home that race win that eluded him in the sprint race, because he led every lap in the sprint apart from the one that mattered, and that was the final lap. But it's not been that way here in the feature, where he has absolutely dominated proceedings from lights out. But coming back to Philippe Sarkis, he chases after Jaden Callaway. Well, it looks like Philippe Sarkis going further and further backwards here. And, well, perhaps the Kraken Racing team principal's been on the radio to Philippe and said, look, you need to back it off here. There's no point throwing away what is a guaranteed podium now. Just get the points home and keep the consistency, because that's what makes championships. But also notice there, look behind the driver and you will see the flashing red light, and that's an indicator that he's out of the push to pass button, whereas Jaden Callaway still got it, and the green flashing light there showing that he's got plenty in reserve. And Callaway sets the fastest lap of the race, a 27.491. So Callaway also saving all of the overtake button for the bonus point. And will Jaden Callaway, if he's not going to take the victory, he's going to steal every point he can, as the white flag is out, and that means we are on the final lap of this race. Lap 26 of 26 is underway. And well, just as our drivers make their way onto that lap, we've now had Cameron Dance improve the fastest lap to a 27.357, and will Dance do a fantastic job with a very distant half of Elliott Court, and will Dance will be very happy with what could be an opportunity for P5 plus a bonus point, as Nick Peterson meanwhile chasing after Leo Delmar right to the very end here and trying to hunt down what is a P6 finish, as Delmar struggling with tyre life, and well, that is not a good sign. And keep in mind that Delmar in fact was one of the drivers to go the deepest into the race on the opening. Instead, he was the driver who went the deepest. He went 16 laps on one set of tyres. So Delmar to be struggling right now is not a good sign for the Frenchman. And Peterson looks up the inside, can't quite find it, but he's going to try and throw everything at this all the way to the checkered flag as they exit the Regia chicane. But meanwhile, we must come back to your race leader, ladies and gentlemen, because he makes his way through the final corner. It eluded him on both occasions of the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. It escaped him in the sprint here at Monza, but it won't escape him at the fourth time of asking. And Adam Merchant lands his first win of the season in the feature race here of round 2 for Squid Game Racing by a phenomenal 10 seconds at the finish line. And it will be a 1-2 for Squid Game Racing once again, with Jaden Calloway completing that P2 finish. Philippe Sarkis will take P3 for Kraken Racing in back-to-back third place finishes, and then it will shortly be a man who's fought his way all the way back to P4, Elliott Court, in a brilliant recovery drive there for Blue Passport Motorsport. Just in front of him, Elliot Guillory finishes P13 a lap down. Cameron Dance will take P5 at the close there, the privateer in the number 6, with the fastest lap point coming his way as well. Leo Delmar has done enough to hold on to P6 at the end for Rodent Jr., just fending off Nick Peterson, and then we have to wait a further 10 seconds or so for Gail Rolls to come to lines for Rodent Racing and complete that run to P8, just staying clear of Shahi Zaher, who finishes P9 behind him. And then it'll be Ryan Thibault who comes around to complete your top 10 finishing positions in the privateer machine. The number 27 makes its way to the line in what has been a very challenging day today at Monza for Ryan Thibault, and Jace Mayer will take home best of rest P11 there for Rabbit Racing, the American driver. We've still got one more drive to come on the lead lap, and it will be Arturo Mayorga, the BMR driver, who finishes the race. Both BMR cars finish in the race for Arturo Mayorga P12 and his teammate Eric Guillory a lap down P13. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. And Shahi Zaher, they're doing some donuts and we're enjoying, celebrating what has been a decent day for the Canadian driver Kraken Racing, and finding something to smile about out there, as a few other drivers are doing donuts. Well, as they do so, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And after an absolutely brilliant 26 laps of racing in our second race of the day for round 2 of the season, our feature race at Monza in season 12 of the League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series, saw Adam Merchant lead home another 1-2 for Squid Game Racing, back-to-back 1-2s for the team today. They've been absolutely dominant from qualifying through to the feature, and taking home that victory by 9 seconds over teammate Jaden Calloway. Philippe Sarkis, back-to-back third place finishes for Kraken Racing's number 4 driver, and the Brazilian driver 9. He still needs to find a few attempts out there to hunt down the Americans in front of him, but has done a fantastic job to put himself on the podium and in control of that third place spot. Elliott Court, P4 there, the Briton for Blue Passport Motorsport, and ruin what could have been. It could have been a podium here in the feature race if it weren't for that altercation between himself and James Turnbull midway through the race, but still to recover to P4, albeit with the fortune of Ray Aguilar having to be towed to the pit, but Court won't complain about that. And Leo Delmar holding on to the final spot inside the top 5 there for Rodent Jr. in what was an absolutely dogged drive. Nick Peterson, unfortunate not to take a top 5 finish, but still taking what was P6, he'll be pleased with that, ahead of Rodent Race's Gail Rolls. The Canadian driver just doing enough to survive from the chase of Shahi Zaher, who recovered well to finish P8 at the close of Kraken Racing. And then your top 10 was completed by Ryan Thibault, the privateer, ahead of Cameron Dance. Best of SP11, it was Jace Mayer for Rabbit Racing, and then we saw Arturo Mayorga and Eric Guillory for BMR finish P12, P13 respectively, and Eric Guillory being our last driver to finish the race, albeit a lap down. It was commiserations for the retiring drivers and non-finishers therefore of Ray Aguilar for Avanti Autosport, who did so well to chase down that P2 finishing position, but that side-by-side battle between himself and Jaden Calloway reached a crescendo, and it was at Regia where it all went wrong for Aguilar, with too much sausage curb at turn 4, kicking the car around and seeing him lose his front wing, and from there was no coming back. We also saw what was Richard Lyes at Racer Rodent Racing going in the wrong direction of that mid-race altercation at Lesmo 2, and the same for James Turnbull there, and well, also for Xavier Zainab for Rodent Jr. The three drivers there so unfortunate in their brilliant battle for what was the second half of the top 10, and we hope to see plenty more of that in a week's time. We also had the early altercation on lap number 3 for a number of drivers, which saw the retirement of David Ayezi, Michael Fairchild, Christian Gritzko, Gareth McAllister, and Robert Nobles, who retired after one lap turned, I believe a separate incident there for the privateer in the number 2, but one to watch out for rounds to come, given his performance in the sprint. So 22 starters, 13 finishers, and in the end 12 on the lead lap, and that brings to a close all of our racing here today of the historical Italian Temple of Speed that is the Monza Grand Prix circuit, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we'll give you an update on the championship standings at the start of the round 3 broadcast in a week's time, but until then, that's all we've got time for today, and it means it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about League Zero, about how you can potentially be on the grid, or just get to know a little bit more about the series in its 12th season, well, firstly, we do recommend you check out our official website, and that's at www.leaguezero.net, an easy-to-use and very accessible website, and on there you can also find hyperlinks to our Twitter page, and on top of that as well, our other affiliated sites and pages, including the official Discord, where everything happens. But if you do want to go straight to the Discord, well, the invite link is available on that screen there, and that is the beating heart of the Inca Salsa League Zero Formula Series, and there you can interact with all the drivers, the admins, and guarantee your spot on the grid. We'd also like to take a moment to say a thank you to our sponsors, Critical Video, MSR Performance Engineering, and also Team Goon Squad, and of course, most importantly, our title sponsor for this season and our ongoing partnership with none other than Inca Salsa. Because if you are a fan of salsa and are looking to taste the very best, then look no further than Inca Salsa. Containing only the freshest ingredients, no gluten and no added sugar, just like the finest authentic salsa should. Once you've had a taste of the incredible family recipe salsa from Julio Espino, you will never want to taste any of the rest. To put yourself in pole position to enjoy the best salsa you'll ever have, head to Inca Salsa's official website, and that is incasalsa.com today for further details. Once again, that website, incasalsa.com. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, attention now turns to what will be the final round of the first half of the season, because in a week's time, we will be making our way to Austria for the one and only, what used to be known as the A1 Ring or the Österreich Ring, but now known these days as the Red Bull Ring at Spielberg. And well, all the racing will occur on Thursday. It will be Thursday, the 21st November, but we will be bringing it to you as if it were live on Saturday, the 23rd of November, 2024. Who will come out of the first half of the season leading the way? Could it be Ray Aguilar? Could it be one of our drivers from Squid Gang Racing? Or could somebody else rise to the top step? We have had 4 different winners in 4 races. Could we even see Philippe Sarkis take his first victory of the season? Well, for all that and more, you'll need to tune in for round number 3 next Saturday. But until then, we have been League Zero. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.